What's going on, YouTube, and welcome to Goal Line Hockey. It's Kevin Forte, and today we are taking a look at our final season, our playoff preview for the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We've got the New Jersey Devils and the Carolina Hurricanes. Who is going to win the Metropolitan Division in terms of bragging rights for 2023? We're going to find out at the end of this series. So going into this matchup, looking at these two teams, kind of interesting paths for both of them. The Carolina Hurricanes, once again, for the regular season, win the Metropolitan Division. But when it comes to the playoffs, it was a different beast. You know, this is a team that's been banged up, had a lot of injuries, and we'll discuss that. And the New Jersey Devils, you know, kind of were against all odds, right? They were down 2-0 in this series, lost their first two games at the Rock. They looked basically left for dead. And next thing you know, they come back and win this series, winning 4 of the final 5 games of that series to defeat the New York Rangers. So with that said, you know, what is going to happen in this series? So looking at, you know, how the Devils finished things out, right? Like I kind of said, they played the New York Rangers, winning that series in 7 games. A pretty dominant win in Game 7 for the Devils. On the other side, for the Carolina Hurricanes, you know, they've had a little bit of time off, defeating the New York Islanders in 6 games. You know, they played some pretty big games, right? A tough environment in Game 4 that I was actually at. UBS Arena 4, and also Game 6, where they were supposed to lose that game as well. So, you know, 2 really big wins there on the road for the Hurricanes builds up some confidence for them. They've really struggled in the last couple of years winning on the road. They were able to kind of build up some confidence here in the first round of this playoffs. And, you know, what's interesting about the Hurricanes, too, is with the amount of injuries they've had, they've been able to fight it off pretty well. You know, you're looking at some of the injuries right now for the Hurricanes. There's a pretty big laundry list, unfortunately. Teuvo Teravainen, he had a pretty bad slash from Scott Mayfield in the first round. He's probably going to be out. He is going to undergo surgery, and I do not expect him to be back at the very least for this round. Andrei Svechnikov, he was also placed on IR. He had a knee injury that was back in March. We're not going to see him either. Max Pacioretty has another injury, and it's a torn Achilles, so we don't expect to see him back either. So those are 3 guys right there in your top 6 that are not in the lineup. Not to mention Andre Kasha, who's been out with a concussion since October. We aren't going to see him this season either. As well as defenseman Jake Gardiner, a top 4 defenseman. We haven't seen him all year. Hip and back issues have been the problem for Gardner, as well as Jack Drury, who has an upper body injury. He's the most likely to come back to this series out of any of these guys because of that hit from Ryan Pulock in game number 4. So other than that, he's expected to return for game 1 of the series, but again, nothing has been confirmed. But he is probably the only guy on this list that we will ever see in this series. So a pretty big list for the Hurricanes, a lot of adversity. And like I said, 3 of those guys are top 6 players in their lineup. Actually, 4 of their top 6 guys, right? Kasha, Pacioretty, Svechnikov, and Teuvo. Those are 4 of your top 6 guys in your top 6 when healthy. So a couple of pretty big injuries for the Hurricanes. But they've been able to find the depth scoring, right? Scoring by committee. And that's really been the reason that they're really even given a chance in this series. The Devils have no injuries other than Jonathan Bernier, but we weren't expecting to see him at all this season anyway, so that doesn't really count. So other than that, the Devils have a fully healthy roster. But like I said, the Hurricanes finding scoring from committee, right? You see a guy like, what's his name, McEachran, getting his first playoff goal, right, in that last series. You're seeing guys like Jesper Fast, of course, Sebastian Aho, kind of taking charge. Marty Necas. Those guys need to continue to score for the Hurricanes in order for them to win this series. And, of course, getting the depth scoring from other guys throughout the lineup is going to be critical. A couple of goals here and there from Stahl, right? You need to see if Jack Drury gets back in the lineup. You want to see him scoring some goals. So when you look at the Hurricanes right now, it's kind of everybody getting in there. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a guy like Seth Jarvis as well. Brent Burns on the back end is really going to be important for the Hurricanes. He was a really stabilizing defenseman in the first round. As an Islander fan, he was really frustrating to watch because he is a very good defenseman. He's just got that. He's a really big guy. He's got a long stick, long hockey stick. I want to make that clear. He's a really tough guy to play against. So that's going to be an interesting test for the Devils. For the Devils side of things, looking at the goalie situation, that's kind of been the big story for the Devils. Akira Schmid has come in and won 4 of the last 5 games to start his playoff career in the NHL. So he's been playing very well for the Devils and has been a critical part to their success so far this playoffs. He's got a .951 save percentage against the New York Rangers, right? And you talk about the Rangers, they've got Panarin, Zibanejad, Tarasenko, Kane, Hedel, Kakko, Lafreniere. Those guys were fairly quiet in this first round series against the Devils. So Akira Schmid has come in and kind of taken over things. You're also seeing a lot of production from the Hall of Famer, Eric Howla, leading the Devils in points. He's got 4 goals here through the postseason. You're also seeing guys like Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, Dawson Mercer, Dougie Hamilton. And also a guy that I'd be remiss to not mention is Andre Palat, right? Remember that guy that left Tampa? He's been doing very well for the New Jersey Devils and is probably a huge part of the experience that the New Jersey Devils have in this lineup. And, everybody was talking about going into Game 7. The Rangers have all these guys, right? I think VC and Nico Mikkola were the only ones to never play in a Game 7. That didn't really affect the Devils because they have guys like Palat, guys like Dougie Hamilton that have been there before, and it really helped them out in this series. So now this is my favorite part of the video because it always drives people crazy in the comment section. But I'd be remiss if I didn't do the comparisons one for one. So we've got offense, defense, goaltending. Now, some of these categories are kind of hard, right? I think, again, you guys got to realize the gap between all of these is extraordinarily small, but it's worth mentioning. So offense, definitely, even without injuries, I think I'd still give it to the New Jersey Devils, especially with guys like Timo Meier coming in. Not that he's been a big factor in the playoffs so far, but guys like Curtis Lazar, just as depth, I think are overall better than the Carolina Hurricanes. And especially when they're not healthy, I think this is a little bit less of a controversy, right? The Devils are fully healthy. That top 6 looks incredible. Just the emergence of the guys like Bratt and Mercer this season. And, obviously Jack Hughes kind of taking over has really created a gap from where the Devils' offense has been in years past. They also had the 4th best goals for this season, just under 300 goals in the 82-game schedule. So the Devils were really scoring a lot more than we've seen in the past. But their defense is also top 10. So with that said, it definitely creates a little bit, well, who has the better defense? Honestly, it's Carolina. They have the 2nd best goals against last season. Second best. So only one team had a better goals against, and I believe that was the Boston Bruins. Other than that, nobody played defense better than Carolina. It's the defense by committee that's really allowed the Carolina Hurricanes to thrive and have the success that they have had. So, I think Brendan Moore in that system, despite the team maybe not being as offensive as they'd probably like, especially with guys like Svechnikov, Pacioretty out of the lineup, they're able to score 2 or 3 goals a game and just give up 1 or 2 goals in order to win a lot of their hockey games. And, they kind of out-Islandered the Islanders in the first round. And, that's why they've had the Islanders' numbers. They're just a little more skilled. They play the same system. They're a little more committed to that system. And they're just, overall, there's more skill on Carolina. And they will make you pay. Carolina might only get 5 or 6 opportunities that are really good in a game. But they score on 3 or 4 of those, 50%, you end up winning more games than not. So Carolina is really committed to clogging up the neutral zone, very aggressive on the penalty kill, which we know the Devils struggled on the power play last series. So, this is a very interesting matchup when you look at that. With that said, the defense definitely goes to Carolina. I think it's extraordinarily close, especially with Gardner out of the lineup this year. But I really like Brent Burns, Jacob Slavin, and really even Brett Pesce. I think those 3 are really the core of the Canes' blue line. I think that's going to be a really tough matchup for the Devils. Even though a lot of those guys showed emergence in the playoffs, like John Marino and Jonas Siegenthaler, I'm giving that one to the Canes. Now this brings us to probably the most controversial of the 3, I think, is the goaltending, right? Because you look at Akira Schmid's numbers in the first round, in 5 games, a .951 save percentage, which is the best in the postseason for a goaltender this year. But you're also looking at a goalie is he just on a hot run? Is he on a hot spell and that's just going to fall off? Or are we really going to see this kind of continue? And for the Hurricanes, I don't even know who's going to start, right? Freddie Anderson played Game 6 for the Hurricanes. I would assume Freddie Anderson's going to start Game 1. We don't know for certain, but I'd assume Freddie Anderson gets the nod in that one. And he played well in Game 6 on Long Island, so it's kind of a weird situation. I'm going to give this one to the Hurricanes. I have more faith in Freddie Anderson. As timid as I say that, I have more faith in Freddie Anderson than I do in Akira Schmid. As good of a goalie as he's been in the first round, the Rangers' top guys were shut down. I just don't think Carolina plays that same sort of way. It's a lot more scoring by committee, and I think that that's going to be a problem for the Devils. Now, with that said, even trying to predict how this series is going to go, I think we're going to find out in the first 3 games of this series. I think we're going to find out pretty quickly kind of who has the better matchup and the edge in the series. I have to go with the Hurricanes here. I think the Hurricanes are better at making the other team dictate their play. And I think that if they are, whatever way Brendan Moore wants to play, we know what they're going to do when they come on the ice, right? It's very aggressive, hard on the forechecking, clogging up the neutral zone. I don't know how the Devils are going to handle that because the Rangers don't really play that way. The Rangers play much more running gun back and forth, exchanging opportunities. The Hurricanes aren't like that. They're very, very almost to a T systematically under that Brendan Moore blueprint, and they stay in line with that. And I think that's going to prove to be a different challenge for the Devils that they haven't seen yet in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I'm definitely giving the Devils the benefit of the doubt, though. This is a really good hockey team, and they're going to force the Hurricanes to the brink. I'm going to say the Hurricanes win this series in 7 games. They're going to have to win this thing down in Raleigh, North Carolina, but I'm going with the Hurricanes moving on to the Eastern Conference Final. I'm really interested to see what happens, specifically in the Eastern Conference. And this isn't a knock against the West this year, but I think Carolina, New Jersey, and Toronto and Florida are probably the 2 series I'm going to pay the most attention to just because of especially that series in Toronto and Florida. That is going to be a very intriguing matchup. 2 teams that are on the cloud 9 of cloud 9. But I think for this matchup too, these are 2 teams that really haven't seen each other much in the postseason. There's a little bit of a geographical rivalry, right, within a 4 or 5 hour radius of each other. So I'd expect opposing fans to be at each other's games. It's going to be a great matchup. Going to build up that rivalry in the Metropolitan Division. But like I said, I think the Devils, overall, I like Akira Schmid. The goaltending is going to give them a chance. Hughes is going to give them a chance. But I just like the way Carolina plays in a playoff series. I'm going to go with them winning this thing in 7 games. So that is my predictions. Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. What do you guys think of this second round matchup between the Carolina Hurricanes and the New Jersey Devils? It's going to be a really intriguing matchup, but I want to know your guys' thoughts down below. Guys, make sure to check out our Built Bar sponsorship. I have the links down below. Make sure to check that out. Use code GLH at checkout for a 10% discount. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.